You were never just a person passing through life. You were always watching it. While others talked, you listened. While others moved on, you stayed with the moment, replaying it, analyzing every word, tone, and silence. And while they forgot, you remembered. But here's the part no one sees. Your mind never stops. Even in silence, it's loud. Even in rest, it's spinning. You're not just overthinking. You're feeling too much, observing too much, caring too deeply. And with that comes a kind of quiet suffering. Because being a deep thinker in a fast, noisy world feels like drowning in a sea of shallowness. You try to connect, but small talk drains you. You try to express, but your thoughts feel too complex to explain. You try to slow down, but your brain doesn't know how to stop. You feel alone, but not because you're isolated. You feel alone because so few people actually meet you where you are, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So you withdraw, not out of pride, but out of exhaustion. You don't hate people. You just crave depth, and depth is rare. But here's what no one told you. What feels like a burden now is actually a gift in disguise. In the next part, we'll talk about the emotional cost of being a deep thinker and why it's often misdiagnosed as anxiety or depression. Deep thinkers aren't just thinkers. They're feelers, absorbers, interpreters of emotional layers that most people overlook. You don't just notice what someone said, you feel what they didn't. The hesitation in their voice, the pain behind their smile, the weight in their silence. This sensitivity, emotional, psychological, even spiritual, comes with a cost. Because when you take in so much, your system gets overwhelmed. You start feeling anxious, but it's not just anxiety. You start feeling sad, but it's not exactly depression. You start feeling drained, but you don't know why. That's the confusing part. You're emotionally exhausted, but there's no obvious cause, no specific trauma, no clear event. Just this constant intensity inside you. So you wonder if something's wrong with you, if you're being dramatic, if you should just get over it. But no one ever taught you that your emotional depth, if not understood, can turn against you. You internalize everyone's pain, but forget your own. You process the world deeply, but rarely have space to unload what you carry. You show up for others, but barely know how to show up for yourself. That's not weakness. That's what happens when the mind is powerful but constantly overstimulated. When you understand more than you're supposed to carry, and carry more than anyone can see. In part 3, we'll look at how this depth creates a mask, and why so many deep thinkers feel misunderstood even when surrounded by people. If you're a deep thinker, chances are you've learned to hide it. You smile when you're overwhelmed. You nod when you're confused. You say, "It's fine," when it's anything but. Because you've noticed. When you speak your mind, people say you're too intense. When you ask deeper questions, they shift uncomfortably. When you share your truth, it feels like too much for the room. So you protect others from your mind. You censor your depth. You become the observer, the listener, the one who understands, even when no one understands you. And that mask gets heavy. Being a deep thinker often means being misunderstood. Not because you don't try to connect, but because your world is built on layers that others never learn to explore. You're not too much. You're just unfiltered truth in a world addicted to distraction. And if you're watching this, chances are you're one of the few who feel deeply, think endlessly, and crave meaning in a world that often settles for noise. You're not alone here. This channel exists for minds like yours, the quiet, rich, complex ones. So, if this speaks to you, follow us for more. Not for content, but for understanding. In Part 4, we'll explore why deep thinkers often attract chaos, and how your mind can unconsciously mirror the emotional storms around you. There's a strange pattern you may have noticed in your life. You often find yourself surrounded by emotionally chaotic people, the ones who are broken, the ones who need healing, the ones who see in you a quiet strength, even when you feel lost yourself. And at first, it feels meaningful. You want to help. You want to understand. You want to be the one who stays when others have left. But over time, it drains you. You become the emotional container for everyone else's storms. Their pain, their confusion, their trauma, it all comes to you. Because you listen. Because you care. Because you can hold it. But here's the truth. Just because you can hold it doesn't mean you should. Your mind was built for depth, not for carrying what others refuse to process. But when you haven't learned how to protect that depth, you become a magnet for chaos. And sometimes, chaos feels familiar. Because growing up, maybe you had to be the strong one. Maybe your emotional depth was born out of surviving unpredictable environments. So now you find comfort in intensity, even when it hurts. You confuse peace with boredom. You mistake anxiety for connection. That's not your fault. It's what happens when your emotional wiring was shaped in fire. But your mind doesn't deserve to burn forever. In Part 5, we'll talk about the quiet loneliness of deep thinkers, and why it often feels safer to be alone than to be misunderstood again. There's a type of loneliness that has nothing to do with being alone. It's the kind that happens in the presence of others. When you're in a room full of people and still feel unseen. For deep thinkers, this is a familiar pain. You crave connection, not just conversation. You crave souls, not just faces. But most of the time, what you meet is noise, surface, masks. So you retreat, not because you hate people, but because your mind starves in shallow waters, because your heart breaks when connection feels fake. And somewhere along the way, you stopped trying. You started keeping your thoughts to yourself. You started lowering your expectations. You started building a life where you'd rather be alone than feel the ache of being misunderstood again. It's not that you don't want love. You just want real love. The kind that meets you in your depth. That doesn't flinch when you go dark, complex, or quiet. But that kind of connection is rare. And while you wait for it, you carry your world alone. Here's what you need to know. Your loneliness isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you're real, in a world where so many are pretending. In Part 6, we'll talk about how deep thinkers often struggle with self-worth, and why being intelligent or insightful doesn't always protect you from feeling not enough. People assume that because you're intelligent, you're confident. That because you reflect deeply, you must understand yourself perfectly. But here's the irony. The deeper you think, the more you see. And the more you see, the more aware you become of your flaws, your fears, your hidden wounds. You don't just doubt yourself occasionally. You dissect yourself. You replay every mistake. You question every motive. You wonder constantly, am I too much? Not enough? Just wrong altogether? That's the shadow side of deep thinking. Your mind is powerful, but when it turns against you, it cuts with precision. You see your strengths, but you also magnify your flaws. You understand others, but often fail to extend that same compassion inward. You help people heal, while quietly believing that you are the one beyond repair. So, you overcompensate. You try to be useful, impressive, necessary, because somewhere deep down, a part of you still feels unworthy just for being. This is what most people don't see. That behind your wisdom, there's a wounded voice whispering that you're not enough. And because you're so good at hiding it, no one ever notices. But I will tell you this, your depth is not a flaw. Your self-doubt is not weakness. It's a sign you care, that you reflect, that you're alive in a world that often numbs. In Part 7, we'll explore how deep thinkers often feel disconnected from modern life, and why the pace of the world can feel unbearable to a mind wired for meaning. If you're a deep thinker, the pace of modern life can feel like an assault. Everything is built for speed. Fast news, fast opinions, fast conversations, quick fixes, instant answers, shallow rewards. But your mind doesn't move like that. You need time, space, room to breathe between thoughts, room to feel before reacting, room to make meaning before moving on. In a world chasing shortcuts, you crave the long road. In a culture obsessed with productivity, you value purpose. But that difference, that slowness, can make you feel like you don't belong. People say you overthink, but they don't understand. Your thoughts are not noise, they're explorations. You're not looping, you're searching for truth, for clarity, for something real beneath the surface. But the world rarely waits, it rushes forward. And when you fall behind in energy and motivation and desire to keep up, you start blaming yourself. You wonder why you can't just do it like everyone else, why you're tired all the time, why you feel so out of sync. Here's why. You're not broken, you're misplaced. You were not made to survive in a system that values output over introspection, speed over soul. You were made for depth, and depth needs slowness to breathe. In Part 8, we'll talk about creativity, purpose, and why deep thinkers often feel called to create, not for success, but to process what they carry inside. For deep thinkers, creativity isn't a hobby. It's a necessity. It's how you survive the weight of your own mind. Writing, painting, music, design, philosophy. It's not about being talented. It's about expressing what words alone can't carry. It's about translating emotion into something that exists outside of you. Because when you think deeply, you feel everything. And when you feel everything, you need somewhere to put it. Otherwise, it stays trapped inside, spinning, swelling, consuming your energy. You create not to be seen, but to see yourself, to make sense of the chaos, to give form to the invisible. It's a form of emotional alchemy, turning confusion into clarity, pain into poetry, longing into something beautiful, even if no one else ever sees it. But often, deep thinkers silence their creativity. They tell themselves it's not important, not practical, not good enough. Because we live in a world that says, if it doesn't produce results, it doesn't matter. But here's the truth. Your creations are results. They are your mind, surviving. They are your heart, processing. They are your soul, speaking. Don't wait for permission to create. Don't wait for applause. You are not here to impress. You are here to express. In Part 9, we'll look at how deep thinkers can begin to set boundaries, not just with others, but with their own thoughts, so they don't drown in their own depth. Being a deep thinker means carrying a heavy load. Your mind is always active, your heart always open. But without boundaries, that openness can turn into overwhelm. You can't be everyone's emotional safe place, not at the cost of your own peace. Learning to say no, to step back, and to protect your energy isn't selfish. It's essential. Boundaries are not walls, they're bridges, connecting you to others without losing yourself. They let you care deeply and stay grounded. But setting boundaries starts inside. You have to learn to calm the relentless thoughts, to notice when your mind is spiraling, to gently tell yourself, enough for today. It's not easy, because your mind wants to solve everything, fix everyone, understand all feelings. But some storms aren't yours to carry. By protecting your inner world, you give yourself space to breathe, heal, and grow. And that space is where your true strength lives. In Part 10, we'll finish by exploring how deep thinkers can transform their depth into power and find peace in a noisy world. Your depth is your superpower. It's the quiet force that sees beyond the surface, that understands what others miss. It's the source of your creativity, empathy, and insight. But it can also feel like a heavy weight, a burden you carry in silence. The truth is, you don't have to choose between depth and peace. You can have both. By learning to honor your mind without letting it consume you. By embracing your sensitivity instead of hiding it. By setting boundaries and finding moments of stillness, you transform your depth into a sanctuary. You become a calm in the storm, not by shutting down, but by tuning in wisely. You become someone who doesn't just survive the noise, but thrives in it. Remember, the world needs your depth, your unique way of thinking, feeling, and seeing. So give yourself permission to be exactly who you are. Slow down, breathe, and know that your mind, with all its complexity, is a beautiful gift. Thank you for being here. If this resonated, subscribe for more. A community for deep thinkers, seekers, and feelers. Your depth is not a problem to fix. It's a power to embrace.